Ah, the Nintendo Game Boy, one of the longest lasting game consoles of all time. It came out in 1989, when the NES was Nintendo's main focus, and a console that replaced it didn't come out until 1998, the Game Boy Color. Wait, what's that? You're saying the Game Boy Color is the same as the original Game Boy and not its own console? Oh, come on, don't be dumb. This one has color! That makes it its own console, right? Well, I guess you do have a point. The Game Boy Advance SP, the DSi, and new 3DS all made huge improvements upon the original hardware, but are considered just different models of their respective consoles. The Game Boy Color is kind of the same. It's not too much more powerful than the original Game Boy. It only lasted on the market for 3 years before it was replaced, and a huge chunk of its games also work on the original Game Boy, although not in color. So which is it? Is the Game Boy Color its own console, or just a variant of the original Game Boy? Well, let's find out. Alright, so let's look at one of the most common arguments for the Color being a variant. The fact that a lot of Game Boy Color games also work on the original. Not really its own console, if its software can still run on the previous hardware. Pokemon Gold and Silver, Mega Man Extreme, Harvest Moon, and Wario Land 2 all still work on the green screen. Sure, there are tons of titles that only work on a new system, but the new 3DS also had those, and it's not its own console, so what makes the Game Boy Color so special, you may ask? Well, there are only like 3 exclusive new 3DS titles, where there are tons and tons on the Color. Pokemon Crystal, Oracle of Ages, Oracle of Season, Super Mario Bros. Deluxe, Wario Land 3, Shantae, Mario Tennis, Mario Golf, Mega Man Extreme 2, and who can forget McDonald's, Hanabo. Okay, yeah, I don't know why that game exists, but it exists. Now those are way too many exclusives to make this argument feasible, so I give this point to the console category. Now for the next debate, and it's about power. Is the Color powerful enough to compare to the OG GB to be classified as a different console? The new 3DS was a heck of a lot more powerful than the launch 3DS, as was the PS4 Pro, the Xbox One X, and the inevitable Switch Pro. But still, none of these have such a big gap in specs to jump a generation, and the GBC doesn't make that jump either. Now, one mistake everyone who hasn't played both before makes is that they assume that the Game Boy Color just adds color, when it has a significant graphical upgrade over the original Game Boy. In fact, the reason why titles like Shantae only work on a GBC is because of this additional graphical upgrade. But at the end of the day, it's still an 8-bit console like its predecessor. Sure, the Wii and Switch aren't too much beefier than the GameCube and Wii U, respectively, but both of those are considered other consoles for other reasons other than pure power, so I have to give this point to the variant camp. What about the lifespan of the system? That's a good way to clear things up, right? Well, no actually. For one, the Color only lasted 3 years, which sounds like a ridiculously short lifespan for a system, but actually, it's the same amount of time as the Game Boy Advance lasted, although I will concede that the GBA had way more overlap time with the DS than the GBC did with the GBA, so this point goes to no one. Things are tied, but there's still one last factor to consider. What were Nintendo's intentions? Well, everywhere you look, everything points to Nintendo treating the Color as its own. And the biggest example of this is on the cover art of every single Game Boy Color game. Unlike new 3DS games which only had the new added to the title when it would only work on a new 3DS, the word Color was plastered on every single box, regardless if it worked on the original Game Boy or not. So in the end, I would personally say that the GBC is its own system, but it's in a very gray area when it comes to this kind of stuff. Honestly, I wouldn't hold it against anyone who would say that it's a new model, but in the end, so many people treat it as a separate console for me to classify it as a variant. Well, that's my take on it anyway, and if you disagree with me, put a comment on this video, because I want this comment section to be a battleground. But please, keep it cool down there. Anyway, I'll see you all later.